Hello everybody, welcome to the 11th video of my channel, Four Corners of the Earth. Hope you're all doing well. I'm going to continue reading the Bible today as usual. We left off on we're going to start on chapter 19. And we're going to continue with the whole Moses story. They just beat the Amalekites. Moses' father-in-law just left. Gave him some advice on how to, handle all the people instead of just taking everybody's, problems and just doing it all the work by himself. So he just picked, other men that are capable to help others on judging, problems and all that. And so obviously they're in the wilderness still. They were given the manna. God has been providing food and water. Even though the Israelites kind of complained a lot, because every time they didn't have something, they would just complain and complain. So it's kind of crazy to see that, after all these miracles, they're still kind of complaining and instead of just having faith and knowing that God is going to have their back. I mean, they just went through all those crazy miracles that God did before their eyes. But anyways, we're going to continue chapter 19. Please follow along with your Bibles or watch the video. Here we go. Exodus 19. In the 3rd month after the Israelites went out of the land of Egypt, on the same day they came to the wilderness of Sinai. They pulled away from Rephidim and came to the wilderness of Sinai and camped in the wilderness. Israel camped there in front of the mountain. Then Moses went up to the true God, and Jehovah called to him from the mountain, saying, "This is what you are to say to the house of Jacob and to tell the Israelites. You have seen for yourselves what I did to the Egyptians, in order to carry you on wings of eagles and bring you to myself. Now, if you will strictly obey my voice and keep my covenant, you will certainly become my special property out of all peoples, for the whole earth belongs to me. You will become to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you are to say to the Israelites." So Moses went and summoned the elders of the people and declared to them all these words that Jehovah had commanded him. After that, all the people answered anonymously, "All that Jehovah has spoken we are willing to do." Moses immediately took the people's response to Jehovah. And Jehovah said to Moses, "Look, I am coming to you in a dark cloud, so that the people may hear when I speak with you, and so that they may always put faith in you as well." Then Moses reported the words of the people to Jehovah. Then Jehovah said to Moses, "Go to the people and sanctify them today and tomorrow, and they must wash their clothing, and they must be ready for the 3rd day, because on the 3rd day Jehovah will come down upon Mount Sinai before the eyes of all the people. You must set boundaries for the people all around it, and tell them, 'Beware of going up to the mountain or touching its border. Anybody touching the mountain will surely be put to death. No hand is to touch him, but he will either be stoned or be shot through. Whether beast or man, he will not live. But at the sound of the ram's horn, they may come up to the mountain.' Then Moses went down from the mountain to the people, and he began to sanctify the people, and they washed their clothing. He said to the people, 'Get ready for the 3rd day. Abstain from sexual relations.' On the morning of the 3rd day, there was thunder and lightning, and there was a heavy cloud on the mountain, and a very loud sound of a horn. And all the people in the camp began to tremble. Moses now brought the people out of the camp to meet the true God, and they took their place at the base of the mountain. Mount Sinai smoked all over, because Jehovah came down upon it in fire. and its smoke was rising like the smoke of a kiln, and the whole mountain was trembling violently. As the sound of the horn grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and the voice of the true God answered him. So Jehovah came down about Mount Sinai to the top of the mountain. Then Jehovah called Moses to the top of the mountain, and Moses went up. Jehovah now said to Moses, "Go down and warn the people not to try to force their way through to look at Jehovah, or many of them will perish. And let the priests who regularly come near to Jehovah sanctify themselves, so that Jehovah may not strike them." Moses then said to Jehovah, "The people are not able to come up to Mount Sinai because you already warned us, saying, 'Set boundaries around the mountain and make it sacred.'" However, Jehovah said to him, "Go, descend, and come back up, you and Aaron with you. Do not let the priest and the people force their way through to come up to Jehovah, so that he may not strike them." So Moses descended to the people and told them. Chapter 20. Then God spoke all these words. "I am Jehovah your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You must not have any other gods besides me. You must not make for yourself a carved image or a form like anything that is in the heavens above, or on the earth below, or in the waters under the earth. You must not bow down to them, nor be enticed to serve them. For I, Jehovah your God, am a God who requires exclusive devotion, bringing punishment for the error of fathers upon sons, upon the third generation, upon the fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing loyal love to those 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. You must not take up the name of Jehovah your God in a worthless way, for Jehovah will not leave unpunished the one who takes up his name in a worthless way. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it sacred. You are to labor and do all your work for 6 days, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to Jehovah your God. You must not do any work, neither you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your slave man, nor your slave girl, nor your domestic animal, nor your foreign resident who is inside your settlements. For in 6 days Jehovah made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and he began to rest on the seventh day. That is why Jehovah blessed the Sabbath day and made it sacred. Honor your father and your mother, so that you may live a long time in the land that Jehovah your God is giving you. You must not murder. You must not commit adultery. You must not steal. You must not testify falsely when you are a witness against your fellow man. You must not desire your fellow man's house. You must not desire your fellow man's wife, nor his slave man, nor his slave girl, nor his bull, nor his donkey, nor anything that belongs to your fellow man." Now all the people were witnessing the thunder and lightning, the sounds of the horn, and the mountain smoking, and seeing this made them tremble and stand at a distance. So they said to Moses, "You speak with us, and we will listen, but do not let God speak with us, for fear that we will die." So Moses said to the people, "Do not be afraid, for the true God has come to put you to the test, in order that the fear of him may continue with you, so that you may not sin." So the people kept standing at a distance, but Moses went near to the dark cloud where the true God was. Then Jehovah said to Moses, "This is what you are to say to the Israelites. You have seen for yourselves that I spoke with you from heaven. You must not make gods of silver alongside me, and you must not make gods of gold for yourselves. An altar of earth you are to make for me, and you will sacrifice on it your burnt offerings, your communion sacrifices, your flock and your herd. In every place where I cause my name to be remembered, I will come to you and I will bless you. If you make an altar of stones for me, you must not build it using stones cut with tools. For if you do use your chisel on it, you will profane it. And you must not go up by steps to my altar, that your private parts may not be exposed upon it. Chapter 21. These are the judicial decisions that you are to convey to them. If you buy a Hebrew slave, he will serve as a slave for 6 years, but in the 7th year he will be set free without paying anything. If he came by himself, he will go out by himself. If he is the husband of a wife, then his wife must go out with him. If his master gives him a wife, and she bears him sons or daughters, the wife and her children will become her masters, and he will go out by himself. But if the slave should insist and say, I love my master, my wife, and my sons, I do not want to be set free, his master must bring him before the true God. Then he will bring him up against the door or the doorpost, and his master will pierce his ear through with an awl, and he will be his slave for life. If a man sells his daughter as a slave, she will not go free the same way that a slave man does. If her master is not pleased with her, and he does not designate her as a concubine, but causes her to be purchased by someone else, he will not be entitled to sell her to foreigners, for he has betrayed her. If he selects her for his son, he is to grant her the right of a daughter. If he takes another wife for himself, the sustenance, the clothing, and the marriage due of the first wife are not to be diminished. If he will not render these 3 things to her, then she is to go free without paying any money. Anyone who strikes a man so that he dies must be put to death. But if he does it unintentionally, and the true God lets it happen, I will designate for you a place where he can flee. If a man becomes very angry with his fellow man, and he deliberately kills him, the man must die, even if you have to take him from my altar. One who strikes his father or his mother must be put to death. If anyone kidnaps a man and sells him or is caught holding him, he must be put to death. Anyone who curses his father or his mother must be put to death. This is what should happen if men quarrel and one strikes his fellow man with a stone or a fist, and he does not die but is confined to his bed. If he is able to get up and walk around outdoors with the aid of a staff, then the one who struck must be free from punishment. He will only make compensation for the time the injured man lost from his work until he is completely healed. If a man strikes his slave man or his slave girl with a stick, and that one dies by his hand, that one must be avenged. However, if he survives for 1 or 2 days, he is not to be avenged, because he is someone bought with his owner's money. If men should struggle with each other, and they hurt a pregnant woman, and she gives birth prematurely, but no fatality results, the offender must pay the damages imposed on him by the husband of the woman, and he must pay it through the judges. But if a fatality does occur, then you must give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn the burn, wound for wound, blow for blow. If a man strikes the eye of his slave man or the eye of his slave girl, and he destroys it, he is to let the slave go free in compensation for his eye. And if he knocks out the tooth of his slave man or his slave girl, he is to let the slave go free in compensation for his tooth. If a bull gores a man or a woman, and that one dies, the bull must be stoned to death, and its meat is not to be eaten, but the owner of the bull is free from punishment. But if a bull was in the habit of goring and its owner had been warned, but he would not keep it under guard and it killed a man or a woman, the bull is to be stoned and its owner is also to be put to death. If a ransom is imposed on him, he must give as the redemption price for his life all that may be imposed on him. Whether it gored a son or a daughter, it is to be done to the bull's owner according to the judicial decision. If the bull gored a slave man or a slave girl, he will give the price of 30 shekels to the one's master, and the bull will be stoned to death. If a man uncovers or digs a pit and does not cover it, and a bull or a donkey falls into it, the owner of the pit is to make compensation. He is to pay the price to its owner, and the dead animal will become his. If a man bull hurts another bull and it dies, then they must sell the live bull and divide the price paid for it. They should also divide the dead animal. Or if it was known that a bull had been in the habit of goring, but its owner would not keep it under guard, he must make compensation with a bull for bull, and the dead one will become his own. Chapter 22. If a man steals a bull or a sheep and he slaughters or sells it, he is to compensate with 5 bulls for the bull and 4 sheep for the sheep. If a thief is found in the act of breaking in and he gets struck and dies, there is no blood guilt for him. But if it happens after sunrise, there is blood guilt for him. He must make compensation. If he has nothing, then he must be sold for the things he stole. If what he stole is found alive in his possession, whether it is a bull or a donkey or a sheep, he is to make double compensation. If anyone puts his animals out to graze in a field or a vineyard and let them graze in someone else's field, he is to make compensation with the best of his own field or with the best of his own vineyard. If a fire starts and spreads to thorn bushes and it causes sheaves or standing grain or a field to be consumed, the one who started the fire must make compensation for what was burned. If a man gives his fellow man money or articles to keep, and these are stolen from the fellow man's house, if the thief is found, he must make double compensation. If the thief is not found, the owner of the house must be brought before the true God in order to determine whether he put his hand on the goods of his fellow man. In all cases of illegal possession of goods concerning a bull, a donkey, a sheep, a garment, or anything lost of which he may say, "This is mine," both parties will present their case before the true God. The one whom God pronounces guilty is to make double compensation to his fellow man. If a man gives his fellow man a donkey or a bull or a sheep or any domestic animal to keep, and it dies or gets maimed or gets led away while nobody is looking, there should be an oath made between them before Jehovah that he did not lay his hand on the goods of his fellow man, and the owner must accept it. The other man is not to make compensation. But if the animal has been stolen from him, he is to make compensation to its owner. If it was torn by a wild animal, he is to bring it as evidence. He is not to make compensation for something torn by a wild animal. But if anybody asks to borrow an animal from his fellow man, and it gets maimed or it dies while its owner is not with it, the man who borrowed it must make compensation. If its owner is with it, he is not to make compensation. If it was hired, the money paid for the hire is the compensation. Now, if a man seduces a virgin who is not engaged and he lies down with her, he must pay the bride price for her to become his wife. If her father absolutely refuses to give her to him, he is to pay the money at the rate of the bride price. You must not allow sorcerers to live. Anyone lying down with an animal must surely be put to death. Whoever sanctifies to any gods but Jehovah alone is to be devoted to destruction. You must not mistreat a foreign resident or oppress him, for you were foreign residents in the land of Egypt. You must not afflict any widow or fatherless child. If you afflict him at all, so that he cries out to me, I will unfailingly hear his outcry, and my anger will blaze, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives will become widows, and your children will be fatherless. If you lend money to anyone poor of my people, someone who is dwelling with you, you must not become like a money lender to him. You must not charge him interest. If you seize the garment of your fellow man as security for a loan, you are to return it to him by sunset, for it is his only covering, his clothing to cover his body. In what will he lie down to sleep? When he cries out to me, I will certainly hear, for I am compassionate. You must not curse God, nor curse a chieftain among your people. You must not hesitate to make offerings from your abundant produce and the overflow of your presses. The firstborn of your sons you are to give to me. This is what you should do with your bull and your sheep. 7 days it will continue with its mother. On the 8th day you are to give it to me. You should prove yourselves holy people to me, and you must not eat the flesh of anything in the field that has been torn by a wild animal. You should throw it to the dogs. Chapter 23. You must not spread a report that is not true. Do not cooperate with a wicked one by becoming a malicious witness. You must not follow after the crowd to do evil, and you must not pervert justice by giving testimony to go along with the crowd. You must show impartiality in the dispute of a poor person. If you come upon your enemy's bull or his donkey straying, you must return it to him. If you see that the donkey of someone who hates you has fallen under its load, you must not ignore it and leave. You must help him release the animal. You are not to pervert the judgment of the poor one among you in his legal case. Have nothing to do with a false accusation, and do not kill the innocent and the righteous, for I will not declare the wicked one righteous. You must not accept a bribe, for the bribe blinds clear-sighted men and can distort the words of righteous men. You must not oppress a foreign resident. You know how it feels to be a foreigner, because you were foreign residents in the land of Egypt. You are to sow your land with seed and gather its produce for 6 years, but the 7th year you should leave it uncultivated and let it lie fallow, and the poor among your people will eat of it. And what they leave, the wild animals of the field will eat. That is what you should do with your vineyard and your olive grove. 6 days you are to do your work, but on the 7th day you are to cease from your labor, in order that your bull and your donkey may rest, and the son of your slave girl and the foreign resident may refresh themselves. You must be careful to do all that I have said to you, and you must not mention the names of other gods. They should not be heard on your lips. 3 times a year you are to celebrate a festival to me. You will observe the festival of unleavened bread. You will eat unleavened bread for 7 days, just as I have commanded you, at the appointed time in the month of Abib. For that time you came out of Egypt. No one is to appear before me empty-handed. Also, you are to observe the festival of harvest, of the first ripe fruits of your labors, of what you sow in the field, and the festival of in gathering at the end of the year, when you gather in front of the field the results of your labors. 3 times a year all your men are to appear before the true Lord Jehovah. You must not offer blood of my sacrifice with anything leavened, and the sacrifices of fat offered at my festival should not stay overnight until the morning. You are to bring the best of the first ripe fruits of your ground to the house of Jehovah your God. You must not boil a young goat in its mother's milk. I am sending an angel ahead of you to guard you on the way, and to bring you into the place that I have prepared. Pay attention to him and obey his voice. Do not rebel against him, for he will not pardon your transgressions, because my name is in him. However, if you strictly obey his voice and do all that I say, I will show hostility to your enemies and oppose those who oppose you. For my angel will go ahead of you, and I will bring you to the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, and I will annihilate them. You must not bow down to their gods, or be persuaded to serve them, and you must not imitate their practices. Instead, you must demolish them and smash their sacred pillars. You must serve Jehovah your God, and he will bless your bread and your water. I will remove sickness from among you. The women in your land will not suffer a miscarriage or be barren, and I will give you a full lifespan. I will send the fear of me ahead of you, and I will throw into confusion all the people you encounter, and I will cause all your enemies to flee from you in defeat. I will send the fleeing of dejection ahead of you, and it will drive the Hivites, the Canaanites, the Hittites out from before you. I will not drive them out from before you in 1 year, so that the land does not become desolate, and the wild animals of the field multiply against you. Little by little I will drive them out from before you, until you become fruitful and take possession of the land. I will set your boundary from the Red Sea to the Sea of the Philistines, and from the wilderness to the river. For I will give the inhabitants of the land into your hand, and you will drive them out from before you. You must not make a covenant with them or their gods. They should not dwell in your land, so that they may not cause you to sin against me. If you should serve their gods, it will surely become a snare to you. I'm going to end it there, guys. So, all these rules that are given to the Israelites, absolutely amazing. You know how God is literally thinking about everything in every situation that happens. You got to think it's all these people. It's just like nowadays, we have the Constitution and all these little rules and, amendments and all that stuff. And every city has its own rules. It's just like you have to have rules with a society. And it's interesting how, back in the day it was eye for an eye, but later on we learned that it's not the way nowadays. But it is very interesting to see how in these days how they would settle, problems between neighbors. And it's interesting that, it all comes from God. It wasn't the people making these rules up amongst themselves. It's literally from God. And it gets more interesting later on because, more rules happen with, the cleaning and they're going to build the Ark of the Covenant and it gets more interesting. It's very interesting to see how this society of Israelites in the middle of nowhere are, starting to do these rules and following them, and just so everything could go groovy. So thank you for following along today. We'll start on chapter 24 on the next video, and like I said, I believe there's 40 chapters in Exodus, so we're halfway there. and then we're going to get into the book of Leviticus. So yeah, hope you guys are having a great Tuesday, and I hope everyone is doing good wherever you are and find yourself and your families, and may God bless you all. You guys have a good night or a good day wherever you are. Bye-bye.